Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogens. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. Today is Wednesday, May 24th. Today is World Schizophrenia Day, because, of course, everyone has schizophrenia when Joe Biden is the president. It's also National Scavenger Hunt Day, it's National Brothers Day, Aviation Maintenance Technician Day. We got to give a big shout out to them because we all want to make sure we're landing safely or even taking off. It's also National Yucatan Shrimp Day, so we know what Gretchen's going to cook up, and it's National Wyoming Day and Emergency Medical Services for Children Day. So shout out to St. Jude and all the other people that help out with children that have serious things that they need medical attention for. It's also National Escargot Day because government is moving at a snail's pace when it comes to legalizing cannabis on a federal level. But thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. Use that fancy little QR code right there in the top-hand corner of your screen to see where we live at on the internet. And we're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only on Clubhouse. And if you are joining us in Clubhouse, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story most recently presented. But coming up first, we have the dope dad himself. That's right, it's Rico Lamitte, the Quasimodo caretaker, a.k.a. Baby Yoda, a.k.a. whatever those weirdo Star Wars kids want to try to name him, but it really is Baby. That's right, it's the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Weirdo Star Wars kids, huh? Yeah, a little projection going on.
Anyone that doesn't call him Baby Yoda is just weird.
Yeah, you have a little suppressed trauma going on there, man. Let's talk about it, man.
It's just Baby Yoda.
Got a friend. Today, I want to talk about cruise ships. The most efficient and cost-effective way to catch and spread infectious diseases from multiple countries before bringing them home to your own friends and family in less than 2 weeks. The increasingly rapid changes in international cannabis legalization and decriminalization laws have dumped a lot of unprecedented pressure on the travel industry. Laws differing from country to country, state to state, municipality to municipality leave travelers confused as to what they can and cannot do, when and where, regardless of if they're looking to consume for medical purposes or just to kick back. We all know what happened to Brittany Griner trying to get into Russia with a vape pen, but confusing TSA statements here in America make it hard for folks to understand whether it's okay or not to load up their carry-ons with for a commercial flight with the most effective travel anxiety meds available or not. Reality is a traveler might have a product in their possession purchased legally in one place, and that can get them into trouble or even arrested in another. Per the article, cruise lines have also been swept into the problem, but Carnival Cruise Lines, MSC, Royal Caribbean, and other major operators sailing from U.S. ban cannabis consumption on board because the cruise lines follow federal law, even though their ships are not flagged in the U.S. So you can't smoke on Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, or any other cruise line sailing from U.S. ports, which shouldn't be that big of a surprise because anyone who's been on a cruise anytime recently knows that they don't even let you bring your own liquor on board, though it's easy to sneak it on if you really want to. And apparently, just like liquor, a lot of people do the same with cannabis, but Carnival is fed up. In an interview with the Street Carnival, brand ambassador John Heald shared how his company handles people who attempt to bring weed on its cruise ships. While the cruise lines have banned consumption, and there are stories shared on social media of people getting kicked off for smoking, enforcement seems spotty. If you walk around the pool deck smoking area after dark, it's not uncommon to smell the aromas associated with cannabis. Heald made it clear that Carnival takes some steps to enforce its rules, including one that may surprise you. This is what he said. As for the drug detection dogs, yes, they have drug detection dogs on Carnival cruise ships now. Let me say that they have, along with our no tolerance rules and enforcement, made a massive difference to the problem of thinking it is legal and allowed to use marijuana on their cruise. It isn't. He posted this on his Facebook page. People have seen those dogs in the cruise terminal, and while it's unclear if they're looking for edibles or any other forms of cannabis, they are very clearly looking for smokables. Heald also shared that dogs are not only used when the ships are in port. These uber intelligent and highly trained dogs are used at embarkation, and occasionally not every cruise on every ship will sail as well with their handlers. Some of Heald's followers responded to his comments on drug sniffing dogs, is what one of them said. They really need more drug dogs when we're getting back on the ship, because people pick up the drugs at ports, and that is when I smell marijuana on the balconies, said Janet Buckingham Stoda on Heald's page. Cruise passengers are not allowed to smoke anything on their balconies, but the rule is widely broken. I'm actually allergic to marijuana and greatly appreciate it if the drug dogs can keep my neighbor from smoking it on the balcony right next to us. Another follower said. So passengers caught with cannabis on board are generally kicked off the ship at the next port. So my question to everybody is, are you guys still on cruise ships? Let alone smoking, like on a cruise ship? Let me double that on the street, and I do not endorse hopping on any Carnival cruises. But hey, maybe it will get some employment for these drug dogs from the cops that are getting laid off and euthanized left and right. Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street. High at 9 News.
I see what you did there right at the end there, Rico, with that.
The dog thing, yeah.
Dogs for dogs.
First of all, cannabis being illegal on cruise ships is not new. It's interesting that they're picking such a strong level of enforcement at this point in time, but it's kind of always existed. And you're just not allowed to take cannabis across, nation lines and into international waters. It's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, you are governed by the Coast Guard and all of the other different maritime agencies in regards to once you get about 10 miles off of the coast. But I do find it funny because I know I've smoked a number of times on Carnival cruise lines, and it's always been a very well-known thing that at nighttime you walk over to the bow of the boat and your boat is moving at a fast enough speed that the smoke is just going to exit off of the ship.
Well, not anymore, Jason. They're cracking down.
Vape pens, everybody, edible shirts, tablets, capsules. Pick them
What
up.
happens when these people are telling them that they that they're smoking hemp?
I mean, doesn't everybody say that?
I'm just saying that's what I would tell them if I was on a Carnival cruise
pull
ship.
out a test right there on the spot and grab your flower and run a test.
They don't have a test for that. They have no test for that. That is total fake news, right?
They do have a test for potency for sure. You can tell based on potency.
That takes about 72 hours, and by that time you already be done with your cruise.
Right, exactly.
Hey, you know what I'm curious about, guys, is what does it mean to be allergic to pot? That lady was so full of shit. Oh, I'm allergic to it. What does that mean?
Well,
I makes you what? Have an orgasm? You shit your pants? What does it make you do?
I'm allergic to bullshit.
I have people that are allergic to cannabis, but they do not have an allergic reaction from smoking it. They have allergic reaction from actually touching it when it's like fresh. When it's fresh, like they'll get like if they were to trim fresh buds, they would develop a rash or hives even, and that is an allergic reaction. So there are some people that are allergic to cannabis, but as far as being allergic to the smoke of cannabis, I'm calling BS on that.
Baloney.
Hey, sounds like a DEA agent to me. They believe that kind of crap. One of them testified in my trial. When they picked me up, I smelled like weed, so they were afraid they were going to get high having me in the car with them.
Oh my God, you got to be kidding!
Tony Sarah about shit. He was laughing so hard at that knuckle.
That's pretty epic.
Funny.
That's a good one.
Gretchen, what do you think about this? Are you going on any cruises anytime soon? Headed out the DC docks or the Chesapeake Bay?
Well, we don't have any cruise lines that come out of Washington.
None at all?
No. Where's there going to be a boat in DC? The closest you can get on a cruise ship is Baltimore. Is the closest you could do it.
Yep.
That's I have cruised. I greatly enjoyed cruising. It was a wonderful getaway. However, that was like 20 years ago. I was on a cruise line. I could see how this would become more of a problem with more of like Puerto Rico coming online, because that is a popular destination. I'm sure Jamaica is also up there and where people are getting things, and people think that it's legal now in those countries, in those places, in those in that Commonwealth, and so they're like, all right, well then I can smoke it. Well, people need education that no, it is still illegal on the cruise lines. I'm sure that's where it's coming from. If they're saying, is there a more proliferation? Because now it's being more openly sold legally. And I know in Puerto Rico, you can get like a daily medical patient pass to purchase cannabis down there. So it doesn't surprise me.
All the flower, though, when you purchase it in Puerto Rico, is not meant to actually be smoked. They specifically tell you it's only for vaporization. So that is one other thing that we should throw in the comment when we're talking about Puerto Rico. But I do remember that these bathrooms in your whatever, your little stalls where you're supposed to sleep in the ship.
Your stateroom.
Your stateroom. You're very, very small.
Your stall.
But the bathrooms are very, very, very well equipped. And I remember a number of people, we were on a cruise and we were just smoking in our rooms and blowing smoke down the toilet and just flushing it, and it would just suck the air right out of suck all the smoke right out of the room.
How often do you cruise, Jason? You seem to have this down to a science.
I do. Well, first of all, I'm an expert in this. Okay, I'm an expert in.
There's an art to hiding smoke smell.
Exactly. There's a very, very good art to this. I'm a master at this. As a matter of fact, I may just start a YouTube class on this just to help the general public know how to navigate the best ways to smoke in places where you're not supposed to be able to smoke.
Yes,
yeah, I like it.
International waters. I love it.
Know where to smoke tip sheet.
Mm-hmm. If she's tip drills.
I mean, Gretchen, you don't have to worry about it because you don't really smoke.
I don't smoke. No.
Yeah. See?
Not a problem for me.
Just sip the tea.
Yep.
Will they? Can drug dogs sniff cannabis in edibles too?
So it's all about those terpenes, bro, because that's what drug dogs are smelling is the actual terpenes in cannabis. Mm-hmm. They're trained to smell. I think it's 4 different terpenes that are very prolific in the cannabis flower plant, which would also be the same terpenes in the hemp varietals of cannabis plants as well. Fun fact for you guys. Terpenes are the same regardless of what plant they're in.
Right.
Yeah, that's the big differentiator. If you're getting an edible that's made with distillate, it's probably likely not going to be detected.
Yes. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, if you have a distillate made edible, there's no terps in there. Yeah. You're going to be totally fine. But I wonder if a vape pen would if they would get set off by somebody.
Depends. I mean, if we're talking about like a live rosin, of course.
Well, especially most of these distillate pens that use these cannabis-derived terps.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that allegedly how Brittany Griner got popped by the drug dog in Russia?
What, that they smelled it?
I don't think that's how that happened.
No, they made her open the envelope.
Yeah, they made her. I don't think that they. I don't think.
Yeah, I thought it was first flagged by the dog, and then they made her open all of her bags.
I don't know. I'm not buying that one. I'm betting that they saw those cartridges through the X-ray machine, and then they wanted a deeper delve.
Yeah,
that's my guess. I'm not buying that the drug dog smelled this, especially when it was Delta 8.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it just goes back to your hemp comment. Like, what if it's a Delta 8 vape? Can you bring that on the Carnival cruise?
You should be. No, yes, but no, but. Yes, but no. You know what I mean? International law is very, very, very different than.
But I don't think this is an international law. I mean, it's because you're selling on a.
You're in the maritime.
Hold on. Let me speak.
Go for it. Please, Gretchen.
Because you're coming out of U.S. ports of call.
Doesn't matter.
And you're easy killer. Let me finish.
Jason is not a killer, but don't push him.
It just seemed because of what I could have sworn in Rico's article was saying that this had to do with U.S. law.
Yeah, they deal with federal. They follow federal law.
They weren't quoting international treaties here, Jason. I understand you're in international waters, yada yada yada. However,
you understand
because you're on a U.S. ship, you're coming out of U.S. ports, you're following U.S. rules.
I'm not buying that.
When it comes to drugs,
they don't enforce U.S. law when you're.
All right, fine. I'm so glad you went to law school, Jason.
I did.
Let's talk about this.
I did. I took Dale's class online on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
that's right.
We'll bring Jason in as an expert on the Jason Beck defense. Jason said we could do it, so here we are. Here he is on the stand. We get away with it, right?
I would come and testify for someone for that 100% all day. But we got to go to a commercial, and we're gonna be right back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know what time it is? That's right. It's Tuesday over here at Green Street, and we got Smoky Vanilla with us in the building. So that's right. It is time to stretch and smoke. We just got done smoking. Now we're going to stretch it out, and then we're going to smoke again.
Let's go. I'm Smoky Vanilla with my background in kinesiology and bodywork massage and assisted stretching. You got to come check it out, baby. Check me out on IG at Smoky Vanilla 1, Stretch and Smoke. Twitter, Smoky Vanilla. Social Club, Stretch and Smoke. We're also on Sports Recovery by Dan and Jam.
If you want to feel as good as I look, then make sure that you get a stretch and smoke in with Smoky Vanilla.
Yeet!
Yeet.
Up next, he's the industry's longest continuously operating retailer, known for smoking the best weed in the world, and he also has an international certificate in consuming on international waters from the University of Dale Schafer.com. Jason Beck.
Oh, yeah, Rico. Good morning, you guys. And, just kind of talking about this whole drug testing scenario thing, I have some good news in regards to drug testing, because the state of Michigan, that's right, all those Michiganders out there, they're considering dropping pre-employment marijuana drug testing for state jobs. That's right. Not Steve Jobs, but state jobs. The state of Michigan is considering dropping pre-employment drug testing requirements for marijuana. Currently qualified employees who fail a drug test for marijuana are then barred from applying for another state job for 3 years. In May, the Michigan Civil Service Commission proposed a rule change that would drop pre-employment drug testing for marijuana. There are exceptions for certain designated jobs like state police troopers and drivers of commercial vehicles. In a quote, they say, if approved, they would not impact current testing policies applicable to test designated positions or those applicable to employees. Nor would they change current prohibitions on an employee's use of drugs while on duty or reporting for or being on duty with a prohibited level of drugs present in an employee's bodily fluids, the commission said in a statement. According to Quest Diagnostics, a national lab company, marijuana use among U.S. workers reached historic heights last year. They analyzed over 6 million general workforce urine analysis tests and found that 4.3% tested positive for marijuana, and that's up from 3.9% in 2021. That represents the highest number of marijuana positive test results ever recorded by Quest Diagnostics since they started analyzing the data back in 1988. Comments on the proposed amendments may be emailed to mcsc-ogc@mi.gov or sent to the Office of General Counsel, Michigan Civil Service Commission, PO Box 3002, Lansing, Michigan 48909. Comments must be received by June 23rd, 2023. And commissioners declined to be interviewed for this story because they do not want to influence the public comment. The commission will review the public feedback at their July 12th meeting. And adult use cannabis use for adults 21 and older has been legal in Michigan since 2018, and marijuana is still illegal on a federal level and is still classified as a Schedule I controlled substance, but everybody knows that. And this is Jason Beck reporting for the High at 9 News. What y'all think about this? The state is back. They took a pay
cut. This is great news, right? California just implemented something similar. I think it becomes effective in the beginning of January of next year, where California employers aren't supposed to be testing for cannabis. And I'm really excited to see that states are taking this seriously, because it's a human rights issue. You shouldn't be prevented from employment just because you're using cannabis.
Agreed.
Period.
Totally agree.
What are they testing for when they test, though? See, that's the muddy waters you run into, because THCA is not psychoactive. So I don't know what they're testing or looking for, that or the metabolites of that. And the metabolites from the psychoactive brands, they don't always tell you when you last used. So the question is, if I'm working someplace and I don't really have to use my brain for a lot of things, and I smoked weed last night, should that be their
government
business?
Job right there, Dale?
What's that?
I said that sounds like a government job right there.
Well, no, you're a supervisor. That's how you get to a government job. But this is all mixed up in how just stupid and unobjective the entire issue around cannabis and what you're testing for. If someone's drinking, you can test for alcohol in their system. If someone has smoked, you can't tell when they last did it, took an edible. So it's so muddied that it's just people who are hysterical trying to get in the middle of this, that there's no objective metrics that you can use to weed out someone who might be a potential employee. And in final analysis, who gives a shit, you know?
Yeah. Nick just put in the comments here that Sheriff Donnie Youngblood out of Kern County, which is, I believe, Bakersfield here in California, said that he will not enforce this because, quote, employers need to know if they are hiring drug addicts. Well, Kern County, you're about to get sued.
Yeah, I don't think he really has a choice in whether with that, but
because sheriffs, if he's an elected sheriff, they answer to the Constitution. They do not answer to the state. That was a big deal with the mask mandates, because a bunch of sheriffs were saying they are not going to do that, and constitutionally, they listen to the Constitution.
Yeah, we had an amazing sheriff in LA that was totally against that. That's right.
He's riding around South Central like a slave catcher with cowboy hats on and AKs, trying to intimidate
Jesus,
people.
stop it.
Facts.
I hear lawyers drawing up lawsuit paperwork right now.
Well, it would have been better that the sheriff kept his mouth shut and we all thought he was an idiot, rather than speak his mind. And now we're for sure he's an idiot. Cannabis and drug addiction do not go together. Just fucking stop it.
Yes.
That's that mindset. Oh, if you smoke weed, you're a moral degenerate. But I can drink and do all kinds of stupid shit all day long and I'm okay. It's nonsense.
Nick actually shared too that apparently the sheriff's son has been arrested multiple times for cocaine. Sounds like he's he signed up for the Hunter Biden on YouTube.
It was a lot like Joe Biden.
Irony.
Oh yeah.
And hypocrisy too, Manndie.
Is the sheriff a Democrat?
So thick. So thick.
You have any thoughts on this, Gretchen? No?
Nothing from Gretchen.
You're on mute, Gretchen.
I know I'm on mute. All right. I think it's a good thing for the state. I mean, to work on their hypocrisy. If it's legal in Michigan, then it should be legal for their workers. So they need to be going that route.
But what about these sheriffs? So what if a sheriff comes in and intervenes here, and the sheriff has more power than the governor, arguably, in certain states? What if the sheriff intervenes? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's creative interpretation of the law.
I'm telling you, that's going to be a great show. Trial and error.
You know what would be really funny to see is the retirement party for guys like these, right? And if we had just like a reel of all the ridiculous quotes that they said over the course of their career and then how it transitioned on this particular topic, it'd be so fun to watch.
I think we should make it more like a roast, Mandy.
I'm in.
Yes, I think that would be better. That's how they would be able to retire, is once they were able to get roasted by the general public.
Some of these sheriffs, man, they're so thin-skinned.
Big talks.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Very interesting. Yeah, Dr. Felicia Dawson just threw in the chat. She says, it depends on what state you live in. Georgia just passed a law that can remove duly elected district attorneys if they don't enforce the laws on the books. Now, that's different from the sheriff, but the district attorney is the chief law enforcement officer for any county in any U.S. jurisdiction. So...
And then we have the story that I covered in New Jersey a few weeks back, where this I think it's the city of Jersey City is saying that cops can be removed from the job, even though the governor made it so cops can smoke or they can consume off duty. If Jersey City cops are caught with THC in their system, because they have to buy their own firearms, they're breaking federal law.
Here it goes. Muddy the water all up. There's something else we can charge you with when you just want to smoke a blunt on the weekend. It's just amazing.
Crazy.
You can drink all you want. You can drink. Just drink yourself into oblivion.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna go right on into the feisty redheaded conservative that loves to tell pot loving libs all about themselves. She often tries to tell me about herself, but that's when she's actually wrong. She loves to dress up her dogs in crazy outfits, and she's the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington Insider. Oh, yeah, it's Gretchen Gailey.
Jason Beck, you know I'm always right. I don't know why you fight it. The headline for me today is coming from Marijuana Moment, and this story is about your boyfriend, Jason Beck. Congressional committee blocks GOP-led marijuana legalization and fentanyl contamination amendments from floor votes. A key House committee has blocked amendments to legalize marijuana and carry out a federal study into the prevalence of fentanyl-tainted cannabis from receiving floor votes. The proposals were both filed by Republican lawmakers who sought to attach them to a broader bill to ramp up criminalization of the opioid that also contains provisions to generally streamline research into Schedule I drugs. Ahead of Monday's House Rules Committee hearing on the Halt All Lethal Trafficking of Fentanyl Act, Representative Matt Gaetz proposed an amendment seeking to federally deschedule marijuana. A separate proposal from Representative Vern Buchanan would have required the Government Accountability Office to carry out a study into cannabis tainted with fentanyl, an issue that many advocates say has received outsized media attention following a number of law enforcement claims that later turned out to be dubious following testing. Neither amendment was made in order by the committee, meaning they will not receive floor consideration. The panel also rejected a proposed amendment from Representative Nicole Maliotakis to prohibit federal funds from going to public or private entities that operate safe drug consumption facilities. In the end, the Rules Committee only advanced 3 of 88 proposed amendments to the broader fentanyl bill, so it appears that GOP leadership was generally reluctant to further revise the legislation, which cleared the Energy and Commerce Committee in March and is expected to be on the House floor later this week. The bill lays out penalties for fentanyl-related offenses and updated requirements for researchers interested in studying any Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act. Advocates who oppose the war on drugs are opposed to the legislation, given that its main thrust is permanently placing fentanyl and its analogs in the most strict schedule and enhancing penalties for activities related to the opioid substances. However, other provisions of the Halt Fentanyl Act that aim to expedite registrations for studies into Schedule I drugs and allow for limited manufacturing by researchers could address some concerns surrounding how the strict classification of marijuana, psychedelics, and other substances has impeded science. Some of the research provisions of the bill are similar to those contained in a marijuana-focused measure that President Joe Biden signed into law last year, giving the U.S. Attorney General 60 days to either approve a given application or request supplemental information from a prospective research applicant. It also creates a more efficient pathway for researchers who request larger quantities of cannabis. The White House issued a statement of administration policy on Monday expressing support for the legislation, calling on Congress to pass all of these critical measures to improve public safety and save lives. Under the bill, a research applicant who is actively registered with the DEA to study Schedule 1 and 2 drugs would need to have their request assessed within 30 days of sending a notice to the Justice Department. A non-registered applicant would have to have their submission considered within 45 days of sending the notice. The measure also states that research that's being conducted or funded by federal agencies like the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services would qualify for expedited processing. Further, the bill says that duplicative registrations would no longer be required for all researchers involved in an approved study of a Schedule 1 substance if they're all a part of the same registration research institution. The legislation goes on to say that a person who is registered to perform research on a controlled substance may perform manufacturing activities with small quantities of the substance without being required to obtain a manufacturing registration, if such activities are performed for the purpose of the research, and if the activities and the quantities of the substance involved in those activities. I don't know that much about the HALT Fentanyl Act, but if it does open up restrictions for researchers and helps expedite the process of the registration, I would say that's a good thing. My main takeaway from the story is that when the idea of descheduling cannabis came up, they said, absolutely not. We are not putting this forward. And that is why I say to many of you who think legalization is coming soon to hold your horses. Congress is not ready to care about drugs. This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
Gretchen, do we know what the vote count was on this?
No.
So there's
Republicans you can find it out. I don't know what it is.
Blocked by the Democrats, bro. Stop it. The Democrats were the majority.
Probably was. I mean, when it goes down committee rules, usually these votes are pretty much down the line.
Party line. And it was introduced by Republicans who want to champion freedom for cannabis, but then blocked by the Democrats that want to just pander to voters by placating to them. Oh, yeah, we're going to legalize cannabis. But then when they have control, they do absolutely nothing.
Isn't that what Republicans do as well? And they just have infighting anyways. No. But I am against them saying that they want to spend tax dollars researching the quote unquote prevalence of fentanyl laced marijuana.
Well, that'll actually be a good thing, Rico, because it'll be probably the least amount of money that the government spends because it's not a real thing.
That's some bullshit because Republicans will
spend the time and the money. I'm with Rico on this. I think it's a dumb bill, a dumb amendment.
I agree that you guys aren't understanding what I'm saying. My point is that lacing cannabis with fentanyl is not a real thing, and therefore any money that they spend on it would be a very, very slim portion because the problem doesn't exist.
It's bullshit. They just spent how much money investigating Eric Swalwell and just to have
be investigated.
Yeah, they investigated him and they just dropped the whole damn thing because they didn't find
nothing. That's because of Joe Biden.
You're trying to investigate anything.
Stop it.
Jason.
It's a waste of time and it's a waste of money.
They're going to waste a ton of money on an amendment that is not needed. I mean, why would they waste their time? It's not
the problem is the administrative rat race they built here. Okay. This has been going on since 1970 when they put marijuana in Schedule 1 until we study it. And then if we're looking at something that's bad about marijuana, you got money. They delivered it by fucking Uber that afternoon. You get you can have anything you want, all the weed you want, registration, blah, 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 blah. If you're looking for what's bad about it, trying to look for something that's good about it. Hang on. What about the children? It's like, stop it. This is the administrative nonsense going on. And it's a nice way to just dodge having to do any damn thing about this at all. My story's going to touch upon this too. It is a Are we going to be thrown off if I say clusterfuck? It's a clusterfuck from every angle you can imagine here.
Yeah, we're not.
They're not going to change, and the whether it's a D or an R, they can easily duck behind something like this. Oh, it's bad. Let's go do something about it. No, it's not. We got 5,000 years of recorded evidence about how bad marijuana is, and it's not there. But let's keep looking, for something bad.
I would like them to spend some of that money, some of our hard-earned tax dollars, investigating their sources of all of this bullshit that they're putting forward. Like
their mama told them.
I know. Invest in Google.
Yeah,
the Google search. ChatGPT. Invest in using that to find out who these sources are telling you that is a prevalence. There's a prevalence of fentanyl laced marijuana.
Yeah,
right
that's total fake news. But we got to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Keeping up to date on the evolving policies of relevant state, local, and federal governments is key to success. When the future of your business is at stake, you need representation as dedicated as you are. With a maze of laws and regulations surrounding cannabis, hemp, and psychedelics, knowing where to begin can be a challenge. Good thing the law offices of Omar Figueroa features a skilled, highly focused team ready to guide you through it all. They're accepting new clients in California and New York. So make sure you check them out at info@omarfigueroa.com.
Oh, yes. Make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not already. And make sure you head over to our website, www.highat9news.com. Make sure you check out our merchandise, just like a number of you already have. I know Ingrid and Leah are going to be linking up in the next couple weeks and going to be doing a bathing suit fashion shoot with their bathing suits, and we're going to post those on our social media so you can check those out. Also, make sure you sign up for our newsletter, and when you do sign up for our newsletter on our website, you will get a confirmation email, and you must hit that confirmation button in order to be subscribed to our newsletter. It may show up in your junk box or in your spam box, so make sure you take a deep look for that. And last but not least, if you really want us to pay attention to your comments in the chat, make sure you make them a super chat, because otherwise they're just comments. Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
He's a 35-year practicing attorney with 23 years in California cannabis, now founding partner at Armada Law Corp, and is hosting a masterclass and pissing up a rope this weekend on his OnlyFans for the free to the first 10 subscribers. So make sure y'all check that out. Up next is Dale Schafer.
Good morning, everybody. My story comes out of Law 360, and the headline is "The DEA is wrong to fire an agent for marijuana test," a federal circuit was told. And as I was reading this, I must admit I had a Schadenfreude moment as I was chuckling to myself that one of their own got caught up in their own bullshit here. It seems that there was a DEA agent who, over the course of his career, which was 15, 20 years, had hurt himself quite a few times, and he was in pain. So he burned his stomach out with non-steroidals. And in 2018, when the hemp bill passed and CBD oil became legal, he said, "I'm going to try CBD oil for my pain." Well, it turns out he pissed positive for THC. And then the battle began because he was eventually fired for having THC in his system, even though the THC came from a legal hemp product. And this is where the DEA did not have anything other than their rigid rules to apply. This guy, he pissed dirty. He took his samples in. He admitted, "I've been using CBD oil," and he gave them the samples he'd used. They tested them all. One of them was a vape pen, had 0 THC. The other two were some sort of liquid that you put into your system. And one of them had 0.35% THC. Now, if you've never taken, advanced math or something, you understand between 0 and 1, there's a whole bunch of math here. So hemp has been defined as THC levels 0.3% or less. Okay. But the DEA's position was, oh, hang on, THC is illegal marijuana. Okay. And this is where they get inconsistent, because marijuana is not defined anywhere, because when they first used that term, no one knew what THC was. If you smoked it and you got high, it was marijuana. You smoked it and you got a headache, it was hemp. Okay, by the time we get to the 1970 Act, we can actually quantify how much is in there, and hemp then began to be defined as 0.3% THC. The DEA's position is that if you use a lawful product that's from CBD, it's from hemp with CBD in it, and that THC gets in your system, that you are using marijuana. That was the position they took. And then when it came to that one product that had 0.35%, there was a margin of error in there of 0.08%. So you look at this and go, one of the officers decided we're going to cut that margin in half so that you can never be below 0.3% and use that as evidence that you were using illegal marijuana. So when you take a look at this thing, this guy appealed to the administrative body that oversees DEA agents and their retirement and things like that. And they basically just kicked the crap out of him. No, you're using marijuana because THCA and metabolites are in your system. And he had, I think, 19 nanograms. Another one he had, some between 10 and 15 nanograms. And I'm remembering back when they were trying to prosecute people for having 5 nanograms per milliliter in their system and being presumed to be under the influence. This guy who claims I'm only taking CBD oil and I've got 19 nanograms in my system, it points to the hypocrisy about all of the trying to criminalize the use of this plant. So what I've got here is an example of what happens when you fall into the administrative system. And we talked about this a minute ago, is that the administrative system does not allow you to change any of these scheduling because the DEA controls that. And even if you get to court, the only thing they're going to do is go, okay, we're going to tell the DEA to let you go to the next phase of your study here. What this guy did is he lost all the way through the system. And now he gets to go to court to ask, can you overturn what the administrative agency did and send me back into it to see if they'll do any better for me? So this points out problems with employees being tested for cannabis and what that means. The actual administrative problems we run into with marijuana and cannabis and what all that means. What hemp means is hemp actually legal if you can use it and then still test positive for THC and be fired for illegal use of a drug. So that's the beginning of some long discussions here. I'll throw it back at y'all. What do you think about this?
I mean, Dale.
They're DEA agent.
These guys are tripping right now.
Yep.
They need to eat them cooking.
Yes, exactly. These guys are super tripping.
Well, but what happens, and I've had friends who have tried to get the federal courts to do this. I know friends of mine who have testified in these cases, is that you want the court to recognize putting it in Schedule 1 is absolute nonsense, not objectively verifiable by science. You never get to ask that question. So you're not going to get to ask, well, is it appropriate to call this hemp or marijuana? You don't get to ask that. What are the metrics that we're going to use to apply to what you can have in your system? You're not going to get to ask that. What you're going to get to ask is, was there substantial evidence for them to fire him? Did they apply the law correctly? And then they'll send it back to the administrative agency. You don't get to get the courts to step in and go, this is crap. Stop it. This makes no sense. It's not objective. It's not scientific. And stop all this. So this is going to continue to be a problem because inside the Beltway, the tax people make a lot of money off this. The DEA makes a lot of money off this. Why would they want to stop this when it's their gravy train?
Exactly. Yeah, they definitely don't want to stop their gravy train, and this has definitely been their gravy train for decades, and so they definitely don't want that to stop in any way whatsoever.
We should abolish the DEA.
Well, we've been arguing for that for a long time. And this is not like the FBI, the DEA, and I have a particular chubby on for these guys because they did some stuff to me that was not funny. I lost my sense of humor a long time ago, but they're rigid thinkers, and don't ask them to get outside their Freddie Flintstone mentality about drugs. They're all bad. You're going to be an addict. No. Just stop. Stay out of this. But we've got that system in place right now.
That they do. They definitely have a system in place right now. Too bad the system isn't working.
Not designed to work.
Be an addict.
It's a control system. It's not designed to work.
It's not designed to work.
It's working as it should.
Well, it's working by design. You're saying is that what you're saying, Rico?
Intelligent design. Yes.
You have any thoughts on this, Gretchen or Manndie?
Nope.
Hold on. Gretchen has been like a silent voice today.
I'm leaving this up to the attorney who knows what he's talking about.
You're going to leave this
Well,
up.
there's a leap of faith. Don't do that now.
Gretchen's all about that.
I'm a board certified practitioner now, remember.
I'm telling you, man, we need a legal law show called Trial and Error. I'm telling you. That would be.
I think that's what's coming next.
Yeah.
We should get Dan. We should get Dan to sponsor called Trial and Error.
Yeah. Make it or fuck around and find out. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Dale, do you think this could be helpful as precedent for moving other drug legislation forward?
Well, I think it could be if we could get a court to actually ask an appropriate question that we send it back down to this administrative agency. And I mean, what's mind blowing to me is this methylprednisolone, this drug to cause abortion. A district court judge went clear back to when it was put into the schedule and where it was and took it out. But we could never get a court to go, oh, hang on, why should marijuana be in Schedule 1? There's no scientific evidence. So perhaps we can crack some of this open, but I'm not hopeful because it'll go right back to the administrative agency that's got their head up their ass and going to come back with the same exact thing we have right now.
I think we have Dr. Felicia in the Clubhouse audience. I think she has something possibly to say on this. Dr. Felicia, are you with us?
Yeah. Greetings, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Because the volume is
Loud
really low on the Clubhouse.
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. I just wanted to tell everyone, if you work for a company that tests for THC, if you take a hemp product, even if it's 0.3% THC, you could still test positive. There was a research study where they were only using 0.2% CBD, and the people still tested positive for THC. So you can only do a CBD isolate to be on the safe side if you work for someone who drug screens. So I just want to caution everyone.
That is very, very true. That is very true. There's a number of people that have been purchasing hemp-based products from like local convenience stores and have all tested positive, and a lot of them have lost their jobs because of that.
Yeah, and had no idea.
Yep.
What they were getting into. Yeah.
No idea what's in them.
Well, and
where
THC is fat soluble. And when I was looking at the numbers from this agent, if he really was using hemp products where there was that low amount of THC, either he was storing it in his fat and putting out in higher numbers than you would expect, or this guy was really, kind of wink, wink, nod, nod, cheating a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was concerned about that, but there really aren't good standards to understand how the body clears these metabolites from cannabis. It's still not written down in enough granite to be able to have experts come in and testify what this means. With alcohol, you know how you clear it. You got so much in, you test it, when's your last drink? You can go back and do those metrics. You simply cannot do it with cannabis because you get metabolites that go through the liver at different rates. They store in the fat, then they come out at different rates. It really just needs to stop being a question. Okay, if you think someone's under the influence, do a sobriety test on them. The testing of the blood in saliva and things like that, in urine, it doesn't tell you anything. It's nonsense.
Dr. Felicia, are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, so Mark Scalione in our chat on the YouTube, he's saying that CBD potentially can convert into THC in the acidity of the gut. Are you familiar with this, and have you witnessed this at all?
I think there was one study that said that, but other studies state that it's not possible in the body for CBD to be converted to THC. Only in the lab with acid can CBD be converted to THC. It doesn't happen in the human body.
Interesting.
Well, there are chemical equipment that can do it with temperature, pressure, and different acids and things like that. It can be done.
So if you push hard enough on your stomach, can you do it?
No. It requires high atmospheric pressures, temperatures you can't have in the body. So even though it's theoretically possible, it's difficult to imagine that happening at all, and it would be in microscopic amounts of it all. The liver is what you look at because the liver converts all these molecules to something else. It's the liver's job. So what comes out of the liver, what you have to study and try to backtrack and see what was it before it got into the liver. And that's where it turns into it should be something to study in college. It should not lose you your job or put you in jail.
Something else to take into consideration is those who are currently out on federal probation and maybe picking up CBD products at convenience stores because there is the general assumption, and then they go back home, they use these products that they are told are safe and contain no THC, and then they test positive on one of their probation drug tests that could send them back to prison.
It could, especially the logic here. And after all this happened, the DEA went back and put up posters and warnings everywhere. If you use CBD products, you could be tested positive for THC or an illegal drug and lose your job. They did it after the fact. And that is a potential problem, Manndie, because they consider THC to be illegal marijuana when it's never been defined. I mean, no one has ever defined marijuana. What does that term mean? It's just nonsense.
It means the opposite of freedom.
Yeah. We're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
They're there. Yep.
How's it going, guys? Saman Razani coming to you from Green Street here with Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast available on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify? Tune in now and check it out.
Oh, yeah. Coming up next, it's Carmen Sacramento, who loves to show the world how being a cannabis executive, a mom, and an edibles judge in the Emerald Cup all can go hand in hand and live a productive lifestyle. That's right. It's none other than the Manndie Tingler.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Today's article is kind of on the fun side and an interesting approach that we're seeing to educating law enforcement about the effects of cannabis. The headline reads, with recreational cannabis eminent, Marylanders try to draw a line between consumption and impairment. It says to help the state's law enforcement and businesses prepare for the imminent legalization of recreational cannabis, volunteers smoked marijuana Wednesday afternoon as a part of a multi-agency training program in Windsor Mill. Talk about a fun day on the job, I guess, right? Baltimore County Police and the Chesapeake Region Safety Council hosted the Green Lab, where medical cannabis patients got high to give officers and workplace safety professionals firsthand experience determining the line between safe consumption and impairment. The council has held 17 similar events in Maryland since 2019, says Debbie Jennings, the organization's director of highway safety programs. At Wednesday's program, participants were offered Uber rides and asked to consume enough marijuana to become impaired before participating in the practice field sobriety tests by law enforcement. Most of the cops have no idea about cannabis. That's extremely evident. There is an undertone of judgment for sure, said volunteer Mac Dawson, who was attending his 4th Green Lab. Dawson said he smoked 3 1-gram joints before walking in a straight line, balancing and touching his nose with a fingertip for his field test. But when you're around police, especially as a person of color, there are nerves, Dawson said. This is one test I've always failed. You're supposed to put your fingertip to the tip of your nose instead of laying your finger on your nose. That is a slight nuance that could allow them to say, oh, this person failed a test. In an email to Sun Baltimore County Police Sergeant Tom Morehouse, who supervises traffic training, said the eye, balance, and walking field tests are the same for alcohol or any drug test. All of the balance tests have their own specific clues that would indicate impairment to the officer, Morehouse said in that email. Jennings said 25 private companies and 16 Maryland law enforcement agencies attended the event Wednesday. Medical patients spoke about marijuana breaking a stigma and treating it as unserious medicine. There's a difference between use and impairment, Rita Lynn Lawrence said. The smell doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong or that somebody is doing something harmful. For me, the medical benefits for spastic muscles, muscle atrophy, physical function, and depression because of all of these have been life-changing. Lawrence said she was one of the first patients in the state medical marijuana program. that was launched in 2017. Before finding her regimen of edible cannabis to treat her muscular dystrophy, Lawrence said she turned to alcohol. At the training program on Wednesday, Morehouse explained that there is no breathalyzer for marijuana consumption and that the same dose can have vastly different impacts on different people. So the determination of impairment falls on the officer's evaluation instead of blood alcohol level. People may feel when it becomes legal on July 1st that means I can smoke and drive on July 1st, and that's not true. You cannot drive when you're impaired by it, Morehouse said. However, we recognize the difference between therapeutic doses and impairment. It boils down to that evaluation that officer does, evaluating the indicators of use and indicators of impairment. Law enforcement officers with extensive experience and 9 days of classroom training are certified drug recognition experts, Morehouse now. And that currently Maryland has 189 drug recognition experts in 33 separate agencies, a little over 1% of its 16,000 officers. Jennings said that at the next Green Lab event on June 20th, law enforcement officers and construction managers will be piloting new technology for sobriety tests to determine cannabis impairment, including an app with a cognitive test to determine a user's impairment, an eye test, and an oral swab that detects cannabis use within the past 3 hours. According to a study by the Journal of Alcohol and Drugs focused on data from 2009 to 2019, states that legalized marijuana and opened a retail market saw a 5.8% increase in injury crash rates and a 4.1% increase in fatal crash rates. According to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, alcohol-impaired drivers accounted for 30% of all traffic-related deaths in the United States in 2020, a 14.3% increase from 2019. Now, you guys, this is a lot. There's a lot in this little article to talk about and pick apart. And I'm personally really interested about becoming an expert on this in 9 days class. That's really interested to me. But tell me what you think. This is Manndie. Happy Wednesday. High at 9.
Well, I've actually been in a courtroom where the question of whether you were impaired under marijuana was an issue for the court. And it's laughable, the people that come in to try and claim that they're a cannabis or a drug recognition expert and they can tell you when you're impaired under cannabis. It's like walking in a room that's dark and trying to find where the other door is. It's nonsense, but the downside's very bad because if you get on your record, then a lot of bad things happen to you. And I don't encourage anybody to drive when they're impaired. The problem is you can't tell when somebody used by any kind of a drug test. It just can't be done. And even if you could, how do you know that they're not legally able to be on the road operating a vehicle at some particular level? You can't do it by a test. You've got to go out and watch them. You film these field sobriety tests. Lateral gaze nystagmus in your eye doesn't tell you shit. Watch them walk straight lines, touch their nose, ask questions. Can they reason and think? And then let a jury decide. But the rest of this is crap. Manndie, I'd help you learn, Manndie, how to be a drug recognition expert for this. I just don't know what all the criteria is. Smoking weed and driving, is that it?
I know this much, that if I was an attorney, okay, representing someone and they called up an expert, DEI expert, I'm going to make him look so bad on the stand.
Yep.
Okay.
It ain't hard to do.
Oh my God. He's going to be like the most uncredible witness that a courtroom has ever seen in their life.
Yep.
Well, and I think you remember that here in California, they wanted to make 5 nanograms per milliliter of presumed impaired, like they did with alcohol, 0.08.
Yeah.
And it's like this DEA agent had 19 nanograms and he was taking a CBD product. So come on, man, that doesn't mean anything.
Measurement. Yeah, the most ridiculous measurement I've ever heard in my life.
Has anybody heard anything more about these 3-hour swabs that they referenced?
Gretchen, this is your lane, right? You're a firm proponent of the field sobriety test, right?
I'm not a proponent of it. I just know that they exist.
Well, we said we need some kind of measuring service so that the feds can tell if you're sober.
And the feds don't want a sobriety test. They want a real test. to be able to actually.
What's a real test?
Like when you blow for like alcohol, like
a breathalyzer.
They want a scientific test to prove definitively if there
is. That does have to exist, right? Well, it has to exist, but it should exist for every single kind of drug out there, not just
right. But those are blood tests. That's the problem with cannabis.
They're gonna have
you can't use that.
Breathalyzer is not going to work for cannabis, y'all.
Right.
Exactly.
Aren't they working on like saliva tests, Dr. Felicia?
It's not how it works.
Well, they are, but
it's not how it works.
The amount of cannabis in your blood does not correlate to impairment. There, I think, is going to have to be some type of a virtual reality headset that the person can put on and sit in their car and not have a cop breathing over your neck, and see if you can do a driving simulation as best you can with cops on the premise or whatever. It's not going to ever really correlate to what's in the blood. It's just not, or in the saliva, or in the mucosa of the mouth. It's about impairment.
Yep, exactly. I totally agree with you on this, Dr. Felicia. You are
well, and as you know, Felicia, there is no test that you can take that will show how it was put in your system. If you smoke it, you're going to get around the hepatic portal system for a long time. If you take it as an edible, it goes through your liver. So the level of impairment is going to be different. And if you smoke it, you only get maybe an hour of effect before it drops off. Where if you eat it, it slowly brings on something that could last for hours. And so taking a test and saying at this test level, you are impaired. I don't know how close we could even be to that right now, Felicia. I just don't know.
Still a lot of
impairment is about how are you behaving? How do you have control of your body and your reflexes? That's what impairment is about.
Yes. Well, but that's a subjective test. We now can have a body camera or the camera on a car take a picture of you doing that sobriety test. If you're waving and can't walk straight, can't touch your nose, you can't respond appropriately, and you have all the objective evidence of being under the influence of something, that goes a long way. But that's a hard test to prove in court. Every cop wants a test that says, if you take the test, it's got this number, you're impaired. I don't have to do any more. You're going to jail. We are not even close to that type of a test right now.
Well, I agree. And we've covered a story on the show last summer where the cops who were trained in drug recognition were only correct 65% of the time, if I remember correctly. So they're not 100%, even when they're trained.
We definitely, we believe in science here, and the only science that has been proven to actually show if you're high or not is moms. Period. Your mom always knows, and your mom can know when you're high.
You never met my mom, Rico.
No level of science advancement around her mom. But we are at the top of the hour, and thank you all for joining us for today's episode of High at 9 News. You can always catch us weekdays 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our super fans showing love, getting their comments projected on the live big screen, and to the live audience members and online supporters catching us across all media platforms, tuning in and giving us feedback on the daily headlines of chaos. To our vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respected opinions to the table, our production team, Cloud Media Partners, House of Fuego, The Vortex, The 91 Club, and all our sponsors helping us keep the lights on, keeping our AV struggles to a minimum. And of course, we cannot forget the lovely Jaja Simone holding things down over in Clubhouse. And to the haters, I love you. Just keep on hating. I'll keep on loving. We're just gonna meet in the middle, and you can pay for us to be a super fan or something like that, and we can take it straight to the bank, motherfuckers. And always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason that we show up every day to read these headlines. Thank you too. It has been Wednesday, May 24th show. You've all been blessed with today's top industry headlines. Hope it was enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. Manndie Tingler, you got the outro today. What we got? I'm just gonna leave.
Just say no to field sobriety tests.
Unless it's a mom.